This podcast is part of the Pull Up a Chair podcast network. Let's build community through connection, conversation, and collaboration. This podcast is sponsored by Lever Consulting, editing with a purpose. Check them out at leverconsulting.com for a free consultation.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on a show.
Welcome to How's That Working For You Season 2. It's your girls Kat and V, but this time we're taking deeper dives into mental health and breaking stigmas. So get ready because things are about to get real and personal. How's That Working For You is a passion project created with the intention of creating space and awareness around mental health topics that are often hard to talk about. We are not professionals in the field of mental health, but we speak from our own personal experience and thoroughly conduct our own research to help educate others on why it's important to join this conversation.
Hey Kat, what's up?
Oh, finals, but aside from that, today's topic is healthy communication in relationships. So let's talk about that and ignore finals because those suck.
Okay, well, you told me that you found a really interesting PDF article.
Yeah, it's a PDF that I found because this particular therapist, his style was really suited for me, and he liked to print out handouts to help me learn how to use dialectical behavioral therapy.
Dialectical behavioral therapy? What in the world?
Or better known as DBT, B as in ball, not Paul. Anyway, the premise of it is to stop and reassess your emotions and how you feel about a particular situation or interaction, and then learn how to reframe it in a way that's more digestible for you and assertively communicate that with whoever is involved in the situation that may have caused you that disruption or stress. So the acronym is Dear Man. So DEARMAN. And I'll explain what it is and then talk about the context in terms of how and when to use it. D is for describe. So describe the situation objectively, and objectively is italicized because often emotions can get in the way of clear thinking and messaging. So be objective. So stick to the facts, and the goal is to get everyone on the same page.
Okay.
E is express. So let others know exactly how you're feeling about the situation. So literally, quote, I feel blank because blank. If you want to be like that.
I mean, that's a good way of putting it, so you don't get too muddled throwing in facts with your feelings.
Mm-hmm. And then A is for assert. Don't beat around the bush. Say what you need to say and don't say, oh, well, I don't know if I can cook tonight or not. So be assertive. Just be clear with your message. Reinforce, which is R. Reward people who respond well and reinforce why your desired outcome is positive. This could be really simple. It could just be smiling and really reaffirming if something about the situation. Actually, I think this is really important, is when you're going over the situation in your head. So in the situation, you may be upset about something that another person did and you want to communicate why you're mad. It's really important to reinforce the other person and tell them I liked this about the way you made me about the situation. I really like how you behaved there, and that made me feel good. But then you can explain what exactly about the way they behaved or the way they interacted with you was so upsetting. So,
okay.
I think that's really important because people really like to hear what they're doing right.
That's so true. Yeah.
So that's like, I wish they put that in more bold letters, because like it's more, they're so much more receptive when they know what they're doing right.
Well, and also, if all your communication is negative, then your relationship's gonna sour really, really quickly.
Yeah. I mean, it's like no one's perfect, but like generally you're in a relationship with somebody because you enjoy them. So, you know, like,
I mean, ideally, yes.
Ideally, yes. I mean, even when you're in the most toxic relationships, you did at some point, for some reason, enjoy them. So, like, I don't know. That's just a joke. Don't stay with toxic people. Just don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, M is for mindful. So be mindful of the other person's feelings, and like, don't get distracted by things that might be harmful. So don't like go rabbit hole back into why you're upset. Try not to.
So like, move on from E, move on from A.
Yeah. Just like, you know, the whole point is to facilitate the conversation, which is why for me, writing this works the best in like written form. It's almost like what's a template, like an essay template in my head. So like, you can fill it out and be like, oh yeah, that's why I'm upset. This is great. Like, and it just clears up the information for the other person involved. Okay, back to A, appear. So it says, I don't know, I feel like this is a reach, but like appear confident. They were trying to reach, but you know, whatever, appear confident. So like, you know, good body language, better posture, eye contact. Those are the person off. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's, you know, good forms of communication. And then N is negotiate. And that's the fun part, where you can actually like then state, or not state, but then you can work with the person and like figure out what would be the happy medium between what upset you guys in the first place.
That's nice that that's a stage in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, for me, it's like, I don't know. I grew up really struggling with writing, I guess. So having something like this as a template to figure out what I should say and how to communicate it properly, it just really fleshes it all out. So again, it's like the whole point of it is really to avoid sitting still in your emotion, and just like really just nitty gritty, clear and dry. And I think this is very helpful for guys specifically, because I don't like, they're a little less, well, not all of them, but like because of the
gender norms.
Yeah, the toxic male gender norms, like they don't have as much experience reading and regurgitating emotions. So having it all clear, cut and dry is like really helpful. And you know, it's not just men. Some people just aren't adept to that either. But yeah, so like looping around to how I came across this acronym was of therapy. One of my actual therapists actually whipped this, I don't know if it's this specific PDF. It was a very similar handout, probably one that actually had spaces that you can write on, to like help me deal with just a lot of conflict that I had in my past, because for some reason I chose to keep very toxic people in my life. So I use this a lot more often when I had to deal with shitty people.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't come across conflict as much anymore in my life, because I've been able to, you know, get rid of that type of interaction, because I don't deal with those people anymore. But, you know, that doesn't mean life is going to be clear of conflict forever. So I do whip this out occasionally. And it's not just that. It's almost like it doesn't even have to be used in a conversation with anybody. Sometimes you just like, it helps. It's a good journaling prompt. Like if you're upset about something, you can just
to like recenter yourself in, okay, well, this was the fact. Here's how I felt.
Yeah, it could be,
blah, 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 blah.
It could represent like internal dialogue. I think a funny thing about this acronym was like when I was Googling it, the way that people described it in these like blog like entries or whatever, like the titles of the articles would be like how to get what you want.
Oh, God.
And I really didn't like that. Because it's like, so gaslighty. Like,
well, okay, we should talk about gaslighting since this episode's about healthy communication. If you're like taking the time to stop and like, here are the facts, here are my feelings, then a person who's gaslighting you might not have as easy of a time because you have your feelings already separated from the fact. And gaslighting is really rooted in warping the quote unquote facts to meet that person's feelings.
Yes, manipulative people.
Yes, like manipulative people. So I could see how this could be a good bar against somebody who's trying to gaslight you. It's like, no, I thought about the fact is you tripped me.
Exactly.
It's not that I fell.
It's like, I'm not crazy. These are the facts. This is what happened.
And it hurt my feelings. And it's not, I hurt my feelings and I fell. You can't warp that.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess when I said difficult people, I meant manipulative people. Just to clear that up.
I figured you were talking, what did we name him? Like Billy Bob or
I think it was Bob, but I really enjoy Billy Bob like a million times better.
Okay, now he's Billy Bob. Anyways, yeah, as soon as you said manipulative or difficult people, I was like, she's talking about Billy Bob. What are you talking about?
Yes, this was like I'm pretty sure that this acronym came to me like when I was balls deep in Billy Bob. Maybe not that particular descriptor, but we're gonna leave it because it's funny. But yeah, when I was that stuck in that freaking relationship. But yeah, you know, this is for those type of people, but it's highly encouraged that you just dump them. But, you know, it's not always that easy. So
yeah, it could be a family member, a friend that you really care about who's like struggling with something.
Yeah.
Like there's tons of times where you have to interact with somebody who's being less than kind to you. And
yeah. And like, you know, everyone has like their moments. So this is really just to cut through the emotion. When I say moments, it's like emotional moments. Because like emotion, which is probably why they came up with this acronym in the first place, is because like emotion just really clouds your judgment and ability to give and receive information, you know? So, okay, well, I've actually never seen these before, aside from yesterday when I first read them. But like one of them is give for relationship effectiveness. So it's not always like their description is like, because relationships aren't always about getting what you need, it's about the other person. So hence give. So G is for gentle. Don't attack, threaten, or express judgment during your interactions. I mean, like that's just human. Like, I mean, it's not always easy to do, especially when you're being emotional.
That should be human decency.
Yeah. Yeah. Interested. So show interest in your partner or the other person. I feel like this is like in the context of romantic relationships, but just for me at least. But yeah, just be interested in another person. This is great when you're like meeting a new person too. Like just genuinely be interested in them if you want them to like you, like vice versa. Validate. Oh my gosh. Validating is so important too. It's so effective in terms of getting a person to understand that you're there for them. Like just or it's like almost a cycle. It's like when you're there for them, you're validating them, and then when you're validating, you're also there for them. Sort of. And then easy. Have an easy attitude and try to smile and act lighthearted. Okay, I don't like the way they phrase that, but yeah, like just, you know, just
be relaxed.
I think it's like be understanding.
Okay, I can see that.
I think that when you're coming up with acronyms, you just kind of have to reach.
So that's the one where they're like, let's just try to like dig our hand deep in that barrel.
Yeah, easy attitude. In other words, understanding, I think. And then for self-respect effectiveness, this is a different acronym. I think this is just for asserting your feelings and like really understanding your value and worth. Like this is something that I truly struggled with in my past relationships, like just family and Billy Bob. It's like the manipulative, gaslighty people tend to make you feel like you're unworthy of acceptance and validation and that your feelings aren't real. So this is probably for that.
Oh yeah, and that fits right in with gaslighting, like we were mentioning a little bit earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Gaslighty people suck, all in all. But like, yeah, try not to be a gaslighting person. And again, I think for some people, gaslighting might also come as a form, like just like a survivalist, like just well, not survivalist. What is it? A reflex? Like just because they're upset, they'll say something that they don't truly mean. But that's not for everybody either. It's like depending on the person. But like sometimes I know in the past when I was less aware of my behavior, like less self-aware, I probably gaslighted a lot of people because I just like, when you don't understand yourself, you tend to reach in the crevices of your head just to say something that will like validate your own feelings and then get your message across. So that's another thing, like gaslight. I don't know. Maybe is there a distinction between like gaslighting and like just emotional response?
Well, there can be, because gaslighting is a certain set of behaviors that result in causing the other person to question reality, their own memory, and the situation at large. And some of the like telltale signs that you're being gaslit are like your partner's telling blatant lies that don't match up with your memory. They deny something that you remember ever happening, and will even point to some of your behaviors as proof that blank or blank happened. They'll use something that matters to you as ammunition. So like, oh, if you were really a loving person, your kids would behave more blank, blank, blank. Or they would choose something that really matters to you as proof that you are wrong. And it's something that they repeat often. So somebody lying to you once.
Yeah, it's a pattern.
Yeah, it's a pattern of behavior. So if somebody lies to you once, they're probably not gaslighting you. If this person lies to you often and they're telling you that you're crazy, you're probably getting gaslit. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So maybe it's not gaslighting, but it's like, well, I think there's a distinction between manipulative people and then people who just don't understand themselves yet. And like,
well, yeah, people need self-awareness comes with age and experience, and sometimes people never get there.
By choice.
Yeah, like, it takes work. It takes work.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think I mentioned it yet, but the actual DBT, so dialectical behavioral therapy, which is what these concepts are, it was developed for like specifically for BPD, but borderline personality disorder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and borderline personality disorder, I think we've mentioned a little bit just because it's often confused with bipolar disorder because the acronyms are so similar. And they get misdiagnosed a lot because unfortunately BPD is less treatable via just medication and brain chemistry. It's actually like it takes the most work because it's a lot of their symptoms are triggered by actual trauma. It's not unbalanced brain chemistry.
One is brain chemistry, the other one's environmental factors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, environmental factors.
Well, I know they play a role in both, but
yeah, it's just like unfortunate. I don't talk a lot about BPD because I don't personally experience it, but from what I've learned and can gather from research is that like sometimes doctors will test bipolar medications on people with BPD to try to distinguish if a person in fact has BPD or bipolar disorder.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just like a good distinguishing aspect of it is whether you can treat it with like medicines that can alter your brain chemistry, you know? So,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, psychology is such a muddy science, you know? It's just everyone's different. Everyone's different, so you can't really just like slap a Band-Aid on everyone.
Yeah, like nothing is fixed with just a pill.
Yeah.
And that's like so important to know. and nothing's fixed with like one session in therapy. Hint, hint, you know who you are.
Who?
There's somebody who's listening who's all like, I went to one therapy session, I'm fixed.
Somebody listens to this podcast and thinks that?
Yeah. No, you're being talked to right now. Do more therapy.
I don't know who you're talking about, but like that's really funny. Wow, I'm so fortunate. I feel like to have been able to move past having, like, I don't know. As soon as I see somebody that's like I see the first sign of manipulation, I'm like, I don't want you around me. Get away.
Well, you had plenty firsthand experience of what it was like to be gaslit.
Yeah.
What it was like to be manipulated. Manipulated, that's not a word. That's fine. I'm leaving it.
It is now. Yeah, this is definitely like in those cases where you can't leave you can't leave a person and like you care about them, but you know, they're just not hearing you. And I think that for me, it came through lots of trial with this acronym for me to realize that it just wasn't going to get through. So like, you can try this a few times. If it doesn't work, you should probably dump the person. Just FYI.
Yeah. But it's also, I think, a good tool from what it sounds like to just be able to distinguish, hey, this was a situation and maybe I overreacted because the facts don't line up with my feelings, which happens.
Yeah. Or, yeah, it's like journaling is such a powerful tool to deal with conflict, and just especially internal conflict. Because sometimes sometimes conflict doesn't happen with another person. Sometimes you're just upset for like seemingly no reason, but there usually is a reason. You just gotta sit and think about it. It's just so good. Communication is like, it's what people tend to forget is that like communication doesn't just apply to other people. It also applies to yourself. You need to communicate to yourself effectively and be kind to yourself too. Because like, I know for me, I was a bitch to myself. Very much.
Oh yeah, that self-deprecation, which is not good. Don't deprecate yourself. Everybody's good in their own way. Everybody's just not good in the same way. Unless, of course, you're Josh Duggar, and then you're not good in any sort of way. Waste of air. But we will leave that comment at there.
Oh my God, Josh Duggar.
Let's not get into that. I'm sorry I brought it up.
He's clearly been at the forefront. Hey, I think it's just, a side effect of you being in a healthy relationship. It's just like, now you just gotta look at other fucked up people to just get that fix of drama.
I watched the Maury show. I don't know if it's necessarily for entertainment or if it's just like, I'm in a better place than you. I'm sorry. That sucks for you.
It's not validating. It's just validating to watch somebody struggle. Oh my God. Yeah.
Not that I'm like superior or anything. It's just like, I could have been you.
Oh my God. Some of those baby mamas are in a deep, dark place right now, and I do not envy them.
And I think not all communication can be fixed like that, because sometimes you get people who just, they can't get to that negotiation point in the acronym.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll just be stuck like, hey, that's your opinion. This is mine. And then you kind of sometimes have to leave it at that.
Yeah.
And it happens. And it's not like the end of the world if not everybody agrees with you all the time.
Yeah, I honestly, like I said, that's what happened with Billy Bob. So, just like, it wasn't going to get through to him because he didn't want to do the work. So.
Yeah, and he also just like, if you didn't believe his gaslighting, he wasn't happy with you, period, end of sentence.
Yeah.
He wanted you to bow to his...
God. Bow down. Oh.
Yeah, bow down.
God, it's like, ironically, I ended up like semi-dating a person who was even worse than that.
Oh my God. I can't remember if we gave him a name or talked about him, but the dude that came...
We talked about him, but we didn't... Yeah, the dude that came after was like 10 times worse.
But it was like almost cartoonish.
Yes,
how much worse he was.
It was like that textbook stereotypical person narcissist. And it's like we talked about stereotypes before and they suck, but like
he was a stereotype.
I've never met anybody that was such a narcissist in my life, like actually, you know? Well, there were some people, but like this person was like especially a narcissist.
It was like he read a horror novel and he's like, I want to be the villain.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be the villain.
Oh my gosh. The nightmare is that he actually got married like a few months after I fucking got over it. Oh my God.
I really hope that that girl is okay and that she has a strong backbone.
Oh my God. You know, she might be just as manipulative and like fucked up. So maybe they're made for each other.
I hope she's even worse.
Yeah. Maybe she's the manipulator here. Maybe she's the abuser.
You know, abusive people can get abused. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Anybody could be a victim of abuse.
Exactly. And you know, some people are abusive because they were victims of abuse.
Yeah. And that like perpetuates the cycle of abuse. You were abused, so you feel like you can abuse, so you abuse, and then your abusees turn into abusers and so on and so forth until somebody eventually, hopefully, breaks the cycle.
I mean, yes. And that's why, like, I guess I want to reiterate how important self-awareness is. If that's important to you, if that's your goal, you know, which it should be
for everybody.
In my opinion, yeah, I think that self-awareness should be like life goals. Personally, it took me forever to get to this point, and even then, I like it's interesting because I was watching Observe. You know that guy?
Okay, yeah. The body language YouTuber.
Yeah, the guy that the body language YouTuber. So he reads body language, and I don't know, he said that like the being human quote, like that excuse is like a cop-out, which kind of like, I think that applies to definitely big apologies made by like public figures and stuff like that. But I think it's also important to realize that you can be human and that you do make mistakes.
That shouldn't be leaking its way into your apologies, though.
Yeah. But when you're doing this with yourself and you're journaling about it, be kind.
Like recognize that you made a mistake, but when you're telling the person, hey, I messed up, don't be like, everyone messes up.
Don't start that. Don't open with that.
That should not be an opener.
Like Miss Lovato. A few weeks ago.
Gosh. If you guys aren't listening to our Cat and V show, make sure you listen, because that's where we're fun.
Oh my gosh, Demi, my dear, she's
unhealthy communication.
Unhealthy communication, and a very clear example of lack of self-awareness. Like
all of the unself-awareness.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you go and like go to YouTube and search Observe, and his channel, he does do a really interesting in-depth breakdown of her infamous apology.
Oh, all the links for everything that we're talking about today will be down below in our website.
Yeah.
So
I'll actually have like the direct link to the PDF there where you can actually print it out. I'm a traditionalist when it comes to worksheets and stuff like that and reading. So I kind of like to have things printed out. And I don't know. This is something that back in my day, I probably would have like cut out and put it into my journal. Actually, when I'm upset, I often look back to this acronym and just kind of to ground myself and understand why I'm upset. And if it's actually in my head or if it's, other reasons.
Mm-hmm. I can see how it would be really helpful to make sure that even when you're upset, you can communicate more healthy. And I think another big aspect when it comes to healthy communication is knowing what mode of communication works best for you. For you, it's like text messaging it, writing it out. For me, with dyslexia, that's the worst possible way to communicate. I'm like 70-80% likely to misunderstand you. And so it's like,
It's
really
unfortunate
frustrating
that we're best friends because it's like,
yes, it's like if when we have disagreements, because they happened in all relationships, it's like, hey Kat, can I just call you so we can work it out in 5 minutes? And you're like, no, I'm not in the headspace. And I'm like,
it's not happening. No, because I'm most likely gonna just be upset and not hear. Like, that's the problem, and I know that about myself, which is like, I think that that's something that I can work on for sure.
active listening.
But it's also like, that's why this is so helpful to me, is because when I get emotional, it's hard for me to like slow down my thoughts, because the thoughts come very rapidly and just like make it impossible for me to hear people. Well, I don't know actually, because that was like what it was like before, but I often see it in other people, and that's why I probably think that about myself. Again, this is just one method of communicating that works for me.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to doing it that you, listener, need to find what works best for you. But, we highly recommend that you start here, because at least it's a starting point. And that's what it matters.
At least a journal.
Yeah, because once you start practicing something, you'll find what actually works for you, and then be able to mend and fix and be an overall healthier person and in healthier relationships. And that's what this is all about.
It just makes me think about your comment about like, you can't just go to therapy once.
No, you can't. Like, it takes work.
That's why it's so much work. Yeah, exactly. It's like, you got to try. And this was something I collected in therapy. It's just, I feel like recovery is all about expanding your toolbox,
Mm-hmm.
I like to think about it that way, because without these tools for myself explicitly, I would be so lost. And this is just a tool that I wanted to share with you guys that really works for me. And again, if it doesn't work, that's okay. There's probably a different way that's going to help you like accomplish the same goal.
Well, on the topic of like a place to start, like Kat said, you should definitely start by, writing down your thoughts, whether it be journaling, text messaging, emailing. But there's plenty of other modes of communication. Some people sometimes need a third party. So like couples counseling is always an option. I haven't personally done it with my partner, but my partner is like a mini therapist in and of itself.
In and of itself.
So I'm not in that position, but I know a lot of people who've had great experience in couples counseling, and it's not necessarily saying that your relationship is broken if you need a third party to bounce stuff between, because sometimes just knowing that you're being heard by somebody is helpful.
It's good to have a mediator.
Yeah, mediators are always helpful. And then if text messaging doesn't work, maybe getting into a different room and phone calling. I've heard that works from a couple of friends. Just having that physical barrier so you're not seeing that person's irritated body language.
Interesting. That's like the in-between of...
Yeah. It's like one step away from text messaging and one more step towards talking, like physically talking. And then, of course, there's always... take a break before having the conversation. Don't have it in like the heat of the moment.
I've definitely come across, like, everyone has a different communication style. This is why we're talking about this. So I've definitely come across somebody who was very, very offended by me not responding to their texts right away. And first of all, if someone's not texting you right away, there's so many different reasons for why that could be. Like, they could just simply be busy. Their phone could be in a different room. Like, there's so many different reasons. And I know as somebody with like texting anxiety, that can be muddled and can cause a lot of frustration. However, some people just need some time to think. And for me, that was the case. And, and I think that's why it's important to learn how other people, like, their communication style, so that you can meet somewhere in between if in fact you want to keep that person in your life.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. If you're communicating as best as you can and the other person isn't, communication goes two ways. Like, you can do your best, but if the other person doesn't at least try to meet you somewhere, then it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's not on you.
Yeah, I feel like that's like an overlying theme of this episode. Is like, you can try. Like, try first.
And you should try.
Yeah, try first. But if that doesn't work, then get the fuck out.
It's not your fault if things fall apart because the other person refuses to communicate to you. All you can control is how you can communicate. Even if the article says that you can get what you want, you can't always get what you want.
It just reminds me of those memes where it's like, it's not your job to raise somebody else's dusty son.
Oh my god.
I'll have to say, I don't know where that was. I'm surprised I didn't send it to you.
That's the best. Oh my goodness.
I know that this is like these communication tactics can be used with literally anyone, but I feel like this concept applies a lot in like situations with stupid significant others, specifically men. Like,
well, traditionally in this culture, that's the setup.
That's where the jokes are. I mean, like, I've actually noticed that a lot of memes and internet jokes are like surrounded around men sucking in general, but it's not like, it's that whole like, not on my thing, you know, like, but it's also truly though, it's just, that's unfortunately because it's so prevalent in toxic masculinity in society these days. That's just why that exists. But you know, we're trying.
That's a whole episode in and of itself.
Oh yeah, we don't need to talk about that now. But yeah, it's funny. I do occasionally will indulge in some good like trash X memes.
Trash.
Especially the ones where they're actually referencing an actual trash can to describe said X. That's like, those are my favorite.
Oh yeah, those are my favorite.
Those are my favorite. Are there any more forms of communication you wanted to mention?
Back in the olden days, there was telegraphs, but you'd be hard pressed to find the other one of those. And I highly recommend everybody try each of them.
I mean, obviously, I think like the first one you should try is actually talking.
Yeah, like the physical, like if you're sitting down together and you're talking and it's not working, then be like, hey, okay, let's take a break. And if taking a break and coming back to it doesn't work, then try the separate rooms on the cell phone. And if that doesn't work, go to texting, go to emailing, and see if that works. And eventually you'll find something that sticks.
And if it doesn't, leave.
Yeah. And if like the person refuses to listen, if they refuse to compromise and you're unhappy, unsafe, whatever, then leave. Because everybody deserves to be happy, safe, and healthy.
In other words, if you somehow find yourself like at your friend's place who you barely even knew because she overheard an abusive conversation between you and your ex,
Billy Bob.
Just leave it. Just leave at that point. If you guys didn't get the reference from our past podcasts, that's what happened. That's how we're friends.
That's how we became.
That's how we're friends. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I guess I can thank him for that.
Yeah, for bringing us together. But at that, let's end this episode for today. Thank you so much for listening. All the links for everything are down below. If you haven't already, check us out on social media. How's that working for you?
Instagram and Twitter, and then also our website, which is where we'll be linking all the resources we used and referenced here.
All right, we'll see you guys next Monday. We're getting closer and closer to the season finale. So if there's anything you want to hear in season 3, make sure you let us know. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, let's talk about Lever Consulting. They help you create so many things. A perfect personal statement, application essays, presentations. They help create writings that truly represent you. They've got writers, editors, and even researchers. Lever Consulting can make all your stuff easy to read, understandable, and enjoyable. They truly take editing to the next level. Not only do they have flexible rates, they also offer assistance with college applications and job seeking. Check them out at leverconsulting.com and get a free consultation.